Welcome, everyone. Let me get our Facebook friends in here for the day as well. We can get talking some Bronco victory. How great is that, man? It's I hate when we go those few weeks, or really it's been, obviously since the end of last season to even get a talk. So yes, we are all in. Facebook is here with us. Thank you guys for joining us on this Tuesday evening with Building the Broncos. I am Carl Dumler, and Nick has some friends in town and hanging out with them with his wife and kid. And so that means we all get the great pleasure of having Dylan join me for the evening. And I was telling him earlier today, I told my kids about our show tonight. And they're like, well, who are you doing the show with? And I said, Dylan. They said, show me a picture. And I showed them a picture of Dylan, and they're like, oh, that guy looks so cool. They really like your hair.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I was hoping it wouldn't. I'm not a bad influence for the tattoos and whatnot, but I'll tell you, I get a lot of compliments on my hair, especially I believe it's Keith Brugman who coins me as Paxton Lynch a lot of the time. So that's a fun one. But yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, so you brought the coolness factor up with Nick gone here, so appreciate that. But no, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit of Bronco football here today, and like I said, talking about a victory. And I love these when we get to do the stock up, stock down after a victory, just because actually you get to talk about the good things going on, not hey, 20 of the 22 players failed this week in miserable ways. So yeah, no, great victory for the Broncos, both sides of the ball. It was almost, I love those moments of it's hard to find the bad because there was just so much good in this game. I mean, it was just a dominant performance. And so, yeah, I'm very excited about that. Before to that, I wanted to get through some of our chat here. We got C Chain coming in saying, rising. Tyler, are we going to Bidet or Beatty? What have we decided that the name is going to be called now?
I'm not quite sure. He was pretty clean on Sunday. You could go with Bidet.
There you go. Falling Javante. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that one. Got David Youngkin coming in saying, evening, everyone. Mike S. What's up, Carl, Nick, Scott, Dylan, and Broncos country. And glad that pretty much still works, even though Nick is not here tonight. He comes in as well. But let's see. Who else we got? C. Chang saying, maybe wearing orange. That's what I'm thinking and saying. I think it's because I finally got my Bo Nix jersey in the mail and got to wear it. It was back ordered. And so my son and I both got to wear our jerseys. Got Daniel Berry Sports coming in saying, hey to you as well. Michael Davis, Risers, Nix, Moss, Bidet, Franklin, Palchevsky, Jones. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of good going on. The fallers being McGlinchey and Javante. I'm not sure. I would say McGlinchey's quite on the falling list at this point. He was the best offensive lineman through the first 2 weeks. So I don't think he's lost his job by any means. But it was good to see that offensive line really do a great job this last week. Give Bo Nix some time to throw the football. So great to see that. David also talking about a guy that probably should get a lot more attention. I like to know how PS2 got such a low score considering he shut down Mike Evans. I have to say, I'm having a hard time ever going to PFF's website anymore. Mm-hmm. When they've got guys like PS2 with a low grade, Zach Allen, again, a third week in a row of him not having the greatest grade in the world. And it just, I don't know what's all going on over there. I like it for some of the raw stats that they can bring, but the grades, might as well just throw those things out of there. So I'm with you there. Patrick Surtain, worth every single penny through 3 weeks. He's had 3 difficult matchups and has pretty much shut him down completely so far.
Yeah, he's done a great job. And like you mentioned, I'm not sure what's going up at PFF there. I mean, Riley Moss was scored pretty highly, although giving up a touchdown, which he had, great coverage on it and whatnot. But kind of weird how they weigh those certain things. And like you said, I'm more for the raw stats that PFF brings, not necessarily their grades or whether, it's A+, whether they go through, letter grading or number grading. At this point, it's a little suspect.
Yeah, they have Patrick Surtain with the 5th worst coverage grade among 95 corners right now. 5th worst. And they just held one of the, I mean, you could probably argue Mike Evans is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's had now 10, 11 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. Doesn't matter who his quarterback is. He goes out there and produces. And he held him to one catch for 8 yards. And you're telling me he's got the 5th worst coverage grade? I'm sorry. That just, some of the stuff that they do just kind of, I can't believe it. But anyway, getting back to the chat here. Wanted to say, let's see. William Catalano, there we go. How about we be happy we have a good, solid secondary instead of comparing past players to now? I love PS2, and I'm glad we have him because he is helping us. Yeah, I mean, I know Nick and I have talked about this, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. What has been the biggest surprise for you in a positive way for the Broncos this season?
Maybe I would say the young secondary, especially like we don't know with all these moving pieces. Obviously, PJ Locke stepped up last year in Kareem Jackson's absence, but it's like, can he maintain that? Can he take that next step? And across from him, obviously, Brandon Jones. He was with Miami. He started quite a few games there, but he felt like more of a third safety kind of guy. You know, how is he going to do when he's starting full time? And this last game proved, hey, not too bad. He kept his eyes on the quarterback, and he got a pick and a fumble recovery. So doing great. And then obviously Riley Moss has looked amazing. And then just that trio of PS2, Riley, and McMillan has been great so far. So coaching up this secondary has been huge for this team so far.
I'm with you. I think that's probably the biggest surprise to me. You know, you lose Justin Simmons, who one of the best Broncos of the last 15 years. You know, I don't want to take anything away from him. I don't want to say Justin who, because he's still missed. He's still a great player. Love to see him pick off Patrick Mahomes this week. I mean, I'm going to cheer for any corner or safety or linebacker, or whoever picks off Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, Brandon Jones, he has been great coming down, helping in run support. There's a couple safety blitzes that they ran this last game, and he was right there making a big play for the Broncos. And then, yeah, like PJ Locke, man, he has been, other than that one little period there, I think in game 2, where he had the bad penalty, got upset, you know, had to kind of be taken off the field. That's the only thing. And I get it. Like, that was very questionable call for sure. And I get why he's very upset about it, but got to keep your head in those kind of moments. We need you to get on to that next play and say, okay, that sucks that happened, but we still need a great player out there. And then Riley Moss. Oh my gosh. It feels so good to finally feel like you have an answer at cornerback number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been about everything you could ask for from a number 2 cornerback. He's been helping in the run game. He's a great tackler. Like, just his form and how he can hold his ground. He can go make a play. He's smart. That pass breakup on 3rd down, where he had to like run through all the traffic and understood what they were trying to do to him to set up a pick play. Like, that's intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the athleticism got him there, but still, you can't do that if you don't understand what an offense is trying to do to you. And so having him on the opposite side of Patrick Surtain, who's not going to get thrown at. I mean, he got thrown at once this entire last game. So those balls are going somewhere else, and he's holding his own. And like I said, McMillan living up to the hype that he started last year. Hasn't had that big drop off or anything like that. So the secondary, and then you add in that defensive line and what they're actually able to do this year. You know, for the Broncos going from like bottom 5 in pass rush win rate last year to top 5 this year. It's just incredible work there that they've got a great unit, and it's not just one guy. It's, I think they said 13 guys this last week got a pressure for the Denver Broncos.
Crazy stuff, stat. Man. It's like I mentioned a lot with how well guys like Sauce Gardner and Deron Bland last year, they were getting the All-Pros, and like, Surtain, this big drop-off and whatnot. I'm like, these other 2 aren't having to cover for 7+ seconds, you know? So it's good to get some pressure up front. That really helps out your secondary, and vice versa. You know, coverage helps your pass rush as well.
Yeah, for sure. And let's see who else we got in here. Got Roy Osborne saying, "Hey there, Carl, Dylan, Scott, and all of Broncos country. Nice to have a win. For sure. And it's nice to have a win that nobody expected you to win. I thought maybe we'd have a chance against the Seahawks. Steelers not having much offense week 1, maybe a little bit, but to be in that early slot in Florida where the Broncos have really struggled, Tampa Bay has looked great this year, and to go out there and get that kind of win when you absolutely needed one, it just might have saved the season. Really, if you're 0-3, I'm sorry, you're not making the playoffs. I think I've heard there's been 2 teams since 1987 that have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. And so if the Broncos stood any chance, they had to go get this one. So great to see that. We got Chase Wellner saying the guy shut down DK Metcalf and Mike Evans, and we're calling him overrated. Okay. We're not.
Nope.
Let's just get that straight. We're not calling. But yes, there are definitely others that have said that in the past. Like PFF, yes, that's one place. I wish that they had to show their work. Like my math teacher always made me show my work.
Yeah.
I hated it. Like I could arrive at the right answer, and he'd be like, hey, I'm going to take like half the grade off because you didn't show how you got there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I just did it all in my head. He's like, nope, I need to know that you're not cheating. And I feel like that's what PFF is doing. Like, I need to know that you're not cheating right here, that you're actually doing some work to prove why you're getting to this kind of grade.
Cheating our eyes, we're seeing the results on the field.
Yeah. Especially, like I said, Zack Allen is the one. I'm like, it is just so obvious when this guy's getting like 9 pressures in a game and you're ranking him as like the 10th best defender on the Broncos that game. Really? How is there 9 guys better than that?
Yeah.
That means that they have to be the most dominating defense in all of history, if that's the case. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I just don't get some of the work they're doing there. But yeah, we got more people coming in for Moss saying, G-Force, Moss has been a huge surprise for me, and it's great. Yeah. I remember during training camp, this was that big, we talked about all the big questions of the roster. And I remember mentioning if Riley Moss could turn into an above average cornerback, the Broncos stand a great chance of having a good season. Like, I hate to put that much pressure on one guy, but I just felt like it just really changed the whole dynamic of the rest of the defense. If you don't have that really big weakness at cornerback number 2 on the outside, where teams can just target him and just keep going at him like they did last year with Damari Mathis, then all of a sudden the pass rush starts winning. Then you got to start throwing maybe a little bit at Patrick Surtain. Maybe the safeties can go make a couple plays like we saw this last week. So the defense as a whole has just been such a pleasant surprise. I expected maybe top half of the league, not top 5. And that's what they've been so far.
Yeah, crazy stuff. It's just after a couple of years, I mean, obviously in the past, but last year, Dog and VJ, I've been on him pretty bad for a while now. And just to see how this defense has come together and then seeing the charts of just how creative VJ gets with his blitzes. And we're blitzing a lot. I believe we're first in the league in terms of blitzes. But whatever he's doing, it's working. And you're seeing the results, whether it's against, Justin Fields and the Steelers. Obviously, the offense wasn't really helping them out too much, but they still did a great job holding them 13 points. And then same with the Seahawks. They did a good job there for a while. The run still ate them up a little bit this week, but they seem to have got it under control.
Yeah. Well, we have Phil McLaughlin coming in saying, good evening, Carl, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Looking forward to beating Hackett this week. Hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life, hashtag Broncos for life. Thank you there, Phil, for the stars. And yeah, definitely, I'm glad that Sean Payton hasn't said anything so far about how bad Hackett is as a coach and those kind of things. We don't have that kind of distraction, but it would be great to have his team go out there and dominate this Jets team that was kind of the dark horse pick for a lot of people to make the Super Bowl. I hate to bring up PFF again, but I know they rated the Jets as having the best front 7 in football on the defense, and having a pretty good off, like pretty much every position they were kind of rating them pretty darn high and expecting them to really make some noise. And so if the Broncos can go into New York, or I guess the stadium's in New Jersey, I should say that, but for playing the New York Jets, if they can go in there and come out with a win some way, it doesn't have to look pretty. That would go a long ways, because then you got 2 home games against 2 very winnable opponents. Justin Herbert went down with injury again this week. Raiders, I'm not even sure who their starting quarterback's going to be when they play us. After their coach is saying some players made some business decisions this week. That's not a good thing to be saying after 3 weeks of the season. So yeah, like I said, this is going to be a really big one for the Broncos. They could get on a nice little run here, but got to take care of business there in New York.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a much tougher defense for Bo Nix to go up against. And for the defense themselves, you got a veteran back there in Aaron Rodgers who's still pretty savvy. He started off kind of slow on the ground, but he's moving around a little better. So he's going to be a little more mobile. But yeah, going to be a big test. And I would just love to shut up Nathaniel Hackett. And like you mentioned, I'm glad Sean hasn't said anything yet. There's still a few days left for him to put his foot in his mouth, but hopefully he stays away from that this time.
Yeah. So I guess let's get to this stock up, stock down. And I figure we could probably try to do like 3 or 4 stock ups and 2 stock downs for each of us, just because there was a lot of good. And I want to start with a rookie, not named Bo Nix. I want to go with Dondre Tillman. This guy, again, all the other edge rushers have gotten a lot of talk. This is his first time getting any kind of play in a game. And he went out there and dominated. And he only had 20 snaps. And in those 20 snaps, he had 2 sacks, another quarterback hit. He had 3 run stops. So, he made an impact on over 25% of the reps he was in. He was making contact with whoever had the ball. And I think the big thing I really like about him is he's very different than the other edge rushers the Broncos have. Most of the other guys are like 6'2", 6'3", 240 pounds, speedsters trying to get around the edge. He's 6'3", 270. So he gives them a little something different, some little more oomph on that defensive line, especially in those short yardage situations where he can get in there and make a play. One of his sacks, he just drove the right tackle into the lap of the quarterback. And so, yeah, like I said, getting to see him go make an impact like that. And that's been the great thing is, like I said, 13 players get a pressure in this game. It's just coming from everywhere. You can't sit there and say, all right, we're going to double Zach Allen every single play and they're going to have no pass rush. Well, good luck. Jonathan Cooper's having a great season. Benito getting around the edge, making a quick sack here and there. Like I said, Tillman now getting in some action. It's just great to see a lot of these really young players that were not expected to be big impact players coming out there being an impact player. So who's your first stock up?
My first stock up, and he didn't necessarily light it up, but I'm going to go with Cortland Sutton. And I know he only had, I believe it was about 68 yards, almost 70 yards on 7 receptions. But it was more so seeing the return of the Sutton that's using his body to make some of these tough catches, right? There was plenty that Bo threw up to him or even in tight coverage, and he just trusted him, hey, go make a play, box the guy out, and come down with the catch. And he did that on several occasions the other day. And it's good to see that connection because Sutton's not really a guy who gets a lot of separation, or I guess a lot of these wide receivers haven't gotten much separation, but it's good to see that he's getting used and that we didn't just bring him back and let a guy like Tim Patrick go with sure hands and everything that he brings, but to see that our number one receiver is contributing and he can still make plays when called upon.
Yeah, that's I almost put him on my list. I was like, oh man, a receiver that only got 67 yards, but they were impactful yards. Mm-hmm. They were like the first play of the game where I think that especially kind of caught the Bucs off guard. Oh, they've been doing all this dink and dunk, and all of a sudden here's this 20-yard pass down the field. And I think it was kind of that wake-up call of, oh, crap, they've opened the playbook.
Yep.
And for him to make that catch, get them in the positive area, get some momentum, like I said, just it was a really good game for him. Even if it wasn't a ton of yards, like I said, there were impactful catches that got them into good position. And so I guess stock down. I'll stick with the weapons here. I'll go all tight ends.
Yeah.
You know, it's I was really, really hoping that one of these tight ends would emerge into something. You know, Greg Dulcich, especially as a receiving option. And it's pretty much like they've just decided, these tight ends are going to be nothing this year. And that's just going to be such a hindrance to being able to maximize what this offense could be. You know, I've talked to a few people. They've asked me, like, what do you think the Broncos could do next offseason to really maximize this roster? I said they've got to add 2 weapons. I don't care what positions they are, but you've got to add 2 more weapons to make teams have to respect it. This offense. You know, whether that's another receiver on the opposite side, even though Reynolds has actually been really good as a number 2. Still offering somebody that can bring a little bit more, a tight end that can attack the middle of the field, you know, a running back that can handle these stacked boxes that teams are running against them. You know, I'm guessing one of us might have a running back on the stock down, just possible. So yeah, and part of that is just because he's not showing the vision needed to handle when things are tight. Mm-hmm. I know that's tough, but that's part of your job as a running back, just to understand where the holes are opening up. And there's been some really good holes, and he's missed them. So there's been a lot of yardage left on the field that should have been there. So like I said, we'll get into him in a second. But like I said, these tight ends just not being able to make any kind of impact. I think if this offense is going to be something this year, Greg Dulcich has to take that next step. He's got to do something more than what he's done so far.
Yeah, Greg, you've seen the flashes the past couple of years, and obviously he's been injured quite a bit. And now that he's on the field, we're really not seeing much. I don't believe Dulcich even had a single target this last game, if I remember correctly. But it's just a shame because he was that guy who was exploiting spaces in the zone. He was really stretching the field at the tight end position, something we haven't had in years, maybe since Julius Thomas. And it just sucks. And then obviously, the rest of the guys we have pretty pedestrian. You got Troutman, who he knows Peyton's system. And he's solid, I guess. But it's he's here. He's a Sean Payton guy, and that's fine. We need bodies there, but that's all that tight end room is really just some bodies, some Jags.
Yeah, and then of course you got Atkins. He's kind of that hybrid guy, but even there, not a whole lot. And then this past game, the Broncos actually went to a lot of 6 offensive lineman snap sets because they couldn't trust any of their tight ends to block.
No.
You know, if you can't catch, at least you got to work on your blocking ability. And none of them have been able to do that. So it's a very frustrating thing it feels like you're trying to win a 100-meter sprint and you have to hop on one leg the whole way.
Yeah.
Because you have this one leg that's just been kicked out from your ability to attack the field. And I see a few people. I did want to give a shout out. Todd Ossendorf coming in saying, stock up VJ. Yeah, Vance Joseph. So last year, this is kind of a crazy stat. Last year, week 3 was Miami. So Broncos in Florida in week 3, giving up 70 points. And a year later, now we are back in Florida, week 3, giving up 7 points. And I don't think you can say that. I mean, that there's definitely talent on this defense. But I would say this defense had a lot more question marks going into this season than they did last season. You know, you had a lot more veterans like Josie Jewell, Justin Simmons, you know, those kind of guys heading into the season. And so for the fact that this defense is playing above its parts, I think that is a huge showing of the coaching that has happened here. And I've seen a couple people make comments, well, maybe this is part of the Jim Leonhard joining the defense. Yeah, that helps. It takes all the coaches, not just the defense coordinator, but there were some great play calls this last game that caught the Bucks off guard. You know, the two player rush on third down when the Broncos have been blitzing all game, and all of a sudden here you throw two guys, and even those two guys were able to make an impact and get into the backfield and actually knock down the pass a little bit. So, you know, those kind of things where you throw them one thing here, you know, 3 or 4 times, they're like, oh, they're going to do it again. Boom. Nope. Change it up. And so he's been a great play caller this year. He's got these guys believing that they can go be something.
Yeah, it's great to see in this. It's funny. My co-host on Orange and Blue View, Ron White, he was at the Miami game last year. And then, so before the game on Sunday, he told me, oh, I'm going to the Buccaneers game. Hopefully I'm not the bad luck charm for games in Florida. So it's good to see that that didn't follow him over. But yeah, you're right. It's a night and day difference. And like you mentioned, there was a lot of talent on the last year's squad that wasn't here this year. Like you mentioned, the linebacking core is yeesh this year. Like definitely the worst on defense, but it could be the worst room on the roster. But you know, them and tight end can fight that out. But it's insane to see. Yeah, and then you add in Riley Moss instead of Damari Mathis. It's just night and day difference.
Yeah. We got Kayla Connis coming in saying, yo, been watching a while, never dipped in on the conversation, but everyone at the Mile High Huddle podcast seems amazing. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I can tell you, I know each of these guys personally. I've talked to them, most of them in person at some point. They're good people on screen and off screen. But I just have to say, Sean Payton can say Bo has been comfy playing in his role, but his performance after week 3 shows he needs time finding his ground. But he's getting there. BJ's D is mauling. Is mauling it. Let's go. I think anybody that expected Bo Nix to day one be a dominant quarterback was just fooling themselves. You know, I can't think of a rookie quarterback that, like, from week 1 on, everybody was going, this guy, he's got it. He's the man. You know, even Patrick Mahomes this year has been struggling. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of crazy. I saw a list of the quarterbacks that Bo Nix has a higher QBR than this season. Patrick Mahomes, one of those quarterbacks. So it just kind of shows, like, quarterback play is down this year. Like, defenses are doing really well. You know, they've really worked hard to take away that big play ability, and having to march down the field 10, 12 plays, that's hard in the NFL. To not get a penalty, to not have a turnover, not have something get blown up during those 10 to 12 plays, it's hard to do. So I think Bo Nix is right on track of where I thought he'd be, showing little bits of improvement each week. And the other part of it is he has played some ridiculous defenses. Right now, number 1 defense and number 2 defense, Steelers and Seahawks this year. I know it's a small sample size, and part of that is what the Broncos did against them. But those are 2 really good defenses with some great players. Tampa Bay, I know a couple of their main players were missing on defense. But still, like I said, you've seen those little bits of improvement, you know, where he's not drifting as far back as much, like that throw to Cortland Sutton. That was one where earlier in the season, he threw something very similar and ended up getting picked off because he was drifting back, waited too long, didn't trust his eyes, where this is one where he ripped it and right on time, everything. So, yeah, I think we can expect some good things. There's still going to be some bad games. Don't get me wrong. It's going to happen. But, you know, I think about, like, Caleb Williams. Man, that guy's struggling. And everybody thought, hey, this is a generational quarterback. And he has some great weapons to work with. And he's struggling a lot. So it takes time to go from that college level to the NFL. I don't think people realize how big of a jump that is, especially for quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. And especially Bo has gotten a lot of flack because, he's they exaggerate most of the time on his age. They're like, oh, he's 30 years old and coming into the league and he should know all this and stuff. But we all know the NFL is a different beast and he's not going to just kill it right away. And as Nick always has been putting it the past couple weeks, you know, his 2 terrible games he had at the start of the season, we can't condemn him for that. Just as when we won this week, we can't be riding too high. It's great. It's nice. We love to see it. He's making progress. He's actually setting his feet when he throws. He's not getting happy feet all the time and trying to bail on a somewhat, mostly clean pocket. And he's driving the ball more and being more aggressive. So we love to see that.
Yeah, I had somebody ask me earlier today. They said, "What grade would you give him?" And I said, "Are we grading on the rookie scale or the NFL scale?" Because it's two different grades there. On a rookie, you got to give him an A because that was a great performance. Was very much in control most of the game. I said, but if we're grading on the NFL scale, I'd probably give him a B. There were still a few throws. There's one that he almost had picked off because he didn't see the cornerback dropping off in zone coverage. He had a couple badly tipped passes that could have been interceptions. And I know that's not completely on him. Tipped passes happen. But yeah, like I said, there were still a few little things here and there. Missed the Troy Franklin throw. That could have been a really big one. He was a little late on that throw. Troy Franklin didn't run a great route on that one either. He should have been drifting a little bit further down the field, give himself a little more space to make the toe tap. So like I said, little things. And that's what you love to say at this point. Like if you start cleaning up these little things, he's not struggling with the big things as much. Now we got to see again, he didn't throw as much in the red zone. Yeah. He definitely trusted his feet a lot more in that kind of moment this game. So I think there's still a little bit of a little shyness going on, a little bit of worry about, I don't want to throw that next big red zone interception. But like I said, it's a positive today. And we'll just have to see how he can build because this Jets defense, this is a whole different monster than what Tampa Bay brought. He's definitely going to have some pressure in his face, and he's going to have to make some throws when he's getting hit to win this game.
Yeah, especially with Sauce Gardner out there. You got what's his name? Will McDonald off the edge. He's been pretty solid. Obviously, they don't have Hassan Reddick. He is still sitting out, so that's pretty good for us. But yeah, they still have a bunch of weapons out there that it's going to prove to be pretty tough for Bo. And if he can look similar to this past week, then he's still on the right track. And it's only been 3 weeks, and we've seen pretty low and we've seen pretty high. So I think we'll even out here, hopefully, as we get further into the season.
All right, well, let's get to our next stock up here. And I'm going to go kind of a combo here.
No.
Quinn Miners and Ben Powers at the guard position. They gave up 0 pressures between the two of them. They were both very, very good in the run game, getting people at the second level. A couple pancake blocks that I saw in there. Quinn Miners started off struggling this year, and he kind of started last year off a little bit struggling. And I think it's kind of weird. Garrett Bowles does that too, where like the first 4 games you're going, oh man, like why didn't we trade this guy? Why didn't we move on from him? And then all of a sudden he has like 12, 13 games where you're going, oh yeah, he's actually a pretty good player. So it just seems like it takes him a little bit to get into the season. But to see both those guys really set the tone, the whole offense was aggressive, but in the run game, seeing them get to some of those second level blocks, the Tyler Beatty, I'm hoping the Broncos really answer that question this week. Like, how are you really supposed to pronounce that?
Yeah.
Because I've seen different people in the media say, oh yeah, it's supposed to be this way or it's supposed to be that way. But anyway, on that block, like Quinn Miners did a great job kind of sealing off that edge to give him a lane to run through. And then all of a sudden you get to see a 43-yard run there for him. So like I said, those two guys helping in the pass game. Bo Nix, that was huge for him to get comfortable back there. Just to have a little bit of time, not worry about getting hit as much. And then all of a sudden you could see him get back to that college way of just dissecting a defense. Oh, this guy open, getting through his reads. First couple weeks, it seemed like one read and I'm already worried about getting hit. This game wasn't quite to that level. So good to see that. Who's your second stock up?
My second stock up, I guess we'll stick here on the offensive line, and that's Alex Palczewski, right? Palczewski. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, he had a fantastic game. He was solid. He held his blocks very well. I don't remember. I was watching the All-22 today. I don't remember a block where he completely whiffed, which is really nice, especially stepping in for McGlinchey, who I know a lot of people are down on. I think it's a lot of last season woes that people are bringing back, but he was actually fairly good even towards the end of last season. But yeah, anyway, stepping up for McGlinchey, did a great job in pass protection, run blocking, everything you could want for a backup tackle coming in, keeping the young quarterback clean.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I thought the Broncos did a great job of understanding he's kind of being thrown into the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't leave him on an island all game and say, hey, good luck, guy, on your first ever start. They didn't do that. They gave him some help on a lot of plays, but even in his one-on-ones, I saw a guy that looked very competent in what he was doing. I'm trying to remember what run play it was, but they showed him getting to one of the linebackers and just decleating him. Yeah. And I had a big smile when I saw that play because I was like, oh man, that's awesome that he's maybe going to be able to build on that confidence because the Broncos are going to need him here for at least 4 weeks to be that guy. And I still don't think he played to a level where you say, oh, Mike McGlinchey, he's going to get benched. One, you're paying Mike McGlinchey a lot of money. You're not going to pay him to sit on the bench. But two, like I said, McGlinchey before this was looking really good. And I know a lot of people get after him because he started off last year in that same kind of mentality of slow. The whole offensive line was kind of in that mentality. But after about week 5 or 6, he really became a very solid to above average right tackle. Now, I know you're paying him to be an elite right tackle. He wasn't quite living up to the contract even when he started playing better. But the fact that he was still playing at that kind of level for you, it's the best right tackle play the Broncos have had. I would say, oh man, how far back do we want to go? Orlando Franklin?
Probably.
Unfortunately, the Broncos have just had a lot of trouble finding a good right tackle. And so I know it hasn't always been pretty with McGlinchey, but he's been very solid for him. And I'm interested to see what are they going to do if they decide not to sign Garrett Bowles next year, to re-sign him. Would they be willing to move Mike McGlinchey over to left tackle? Because that's what he played in college. So, I mean, it's not like it'd be something new for him. And then have Palczewski at the right tackle spot, just so you save a little bit of money at the offensive line. Maybe you can invest in a center.
Yeah.
Because Wattenberg, if we're going to get the stock down here in just a second, he might be on there for me. But we got G4s coming in with the 199 super chat saying, I'll be at the game by myself, 50-yard line, go Broncos. That is great to hear. I do have to give a shout out to Broncos country. Like, I could hear them in the broadcast during that Tampa Bay game. It was pretty awesome to hear just how many were there. And I saw them do a kind of a camera showing across the field, and there was a lot of blue and orange in that stadium. Now, I expect the Jets to be a little bit more hostile for a crowd, but I'm glad that G4 is going to be there cheering on the Broncos. You're going to have to cheer loud enough to cover up for maybe 50,000 Bronco fans not being there. So good luck with that, G4. But no, appreciate the super chat. And hopefully it's one of those games where you get to be one of the few people going out of that stadium cheering really loud. Just be careful.
Yeah, those New York fans, man, you never know. They're pretty passionate. You maybe not get too loud.
Yeah, a respectful level of excitement.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I think, like I said, the entire offensive line, Bowles had some struggles. And I'll get to my next stock down here. Luke Wattenberg. I know he didn't give up a pressure, but part of that was more he was helping. He didn't have a whole lot of one-on-ones in this one. I am really worried about this next game against the Jets. They're probably going to try to isolate Quinnen Williams on him. And I've watched a couple of the Jets games this year. Quinnen Williams, that first step fire that he has, like there's a lot of plays where he's about knocking the offensive lineman on their butt with just his first punch. Like he's strong, he's fast, he is a great player. And like I said, I think they're going to try to do some isolation there, see if they can win a couple reps up the middle. And I know the offensive line looked better in this one, but Wattenberg still had his struggles. He still missed a few key blocks, especially in the run game. And the Broncos still have a center problem, unfortunately. And this is where, like I said, if you're going to maybe save some money by moving McGlinchey over and putting somebody there at that right tackle spot, maybe use a little bit of that Bulls money to invest in the center. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know who's going to be free agents next year, but I'm sorry. It's been really bad for the Broncos. They've had a bottom 10 center for about 5 years now.
Yeah, it's just it's tough because obviously everywhere else on the offensive line you've invested money into, and then that center position you just obviously you let Cushenberry walk in the offseason, and makes sense. He went and got paid by the Titans, and that's all well and good, but you don't get a plus to take over for him. And as we got further and further into the offseason, I was like, okay, maybe they'll sign someone. Oh, the draft just went by. Okay, what are we going to do here? And that's some of the worst things for any quarterback, but especially a rookie quarterback, getting pressure in their face right up the middle. Like you mentioned, Quinn Williams, they're definitely going to try and isolate Wattenberg on him, and it could get ugly pretty quick, and he's going to need a lot of help because, like you mentioned, he's not going to be a secondary blocker. He's not going to be assisting. He's going to be one-on-one with him, and it scares me even now just thinking about it, but hopefully we can get that short up and he can show out in this next game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad the Broncos didn't re-sign Cushenberry because I don't think he was a great center. He was never going to be worth it, whatever he was going to get on the open market. But to kind of, and I get the Broncos had to do this because they had that 50+ million dead money from Russell Wilson. I mean, that's the trade that keeps on giving for the Broncos. And so there were going to be some areas you had to cut and just hope that some young player would step up and become something. And so, a couple players have, like a Riley Moss. We've talked about him a couple times already tonight. He was able to answer that question for you. Mm-hmm. But there's been a few spots that you're like, crap, this is where that money is hurting. Not having wide receiver talent. Mm-hmm. You hope that doesn't come back to bite you. Tight end as well. You were going to depend on some younger players on some really cheap contracts to be something. And now center. You kind of hope that between Wattenberg and Forsythe that you could have something. And unfortunately, neither of them have been much. Forsythe in the preseason, not great. So I don't think it's like you can say, oh, let's bench Wattenberg and let's see what Forsythe can do. No, he was much worse in the preseason than Wattenberg ever was. And so it is. It's going to be one of those question marks that I think could be a destroyer of this offense because teams will start figuring out like, hey, let's go after this guy. Let's get some AA gap blitzes going where he has to block somebody on one-on-one. And I don't think that's going to end well for the Broncos. And the Jets, they like to get after you. So this could be that week where they really put that pressure on the middle, and it's going to be up to him to have to handle. But getting back to the positive here. Like I said, I think we could go about anybody on defense and probably say that was a positive. Mm-hmm. And we talked about him a little bit earlier. Brandon Jones, the way they paid him was more like a backup safety position. And some, I mean, they still paid him decent, but it wasn't like great.
Yeah.
It was that bottom level starter. Like we just have to put a body there. And he really has been just an incredible signing for them. Both in coverage and getting after the run game. He is just, I've been so impressed with him, especially missing most of the offseason with an injury. Mm-hmm. For him getting put into this whole new system and not having that time to really work it on the field. I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on and their communication between all these new pieces goes on. I'm excited about this defense. I know I'm not ready to crown them yet. They're going to still play some great offenses, the Chiefs, the Jets this week. But still, like I said, they've been this incredible, pleasant surprise. I don't think they're going to have. They might have a little bit of a drop off. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden become a bottom 5 defense tomorrow, kind of thing. They've got some depth. They've got some starters that are showing really well, and Brandon Jones is definitely a part of that. Who's your next stock up?
Well, I almost want to stick in the secondary because we've talked about Riley Moss and all that, but I think maybe a little underrated one. Another one kind of similar to Sutton, where he didn't break open the game or anything like that, but I think DJ Jones had probably his best game as a Bronco in a long time, disrupting the run, even getting after the passer quite a bit, and he never got bullied like we saw last season. He ended up on his butt a lot, and it's just frustrating because we saw how good he was a couple years ago, and it seems we're finally getting that again with DJ, especially on a team who needs good depth and even just good starters on that defensive line.
He finally had a game. He didn't fall on the ground every other play.
Yeah.
And, it is so frustrating to watch him because there are some great reps that he has where he'll take on a double team and hold his own and allow the linebackers to go make a play or whatever. And then the very next one, he like dives at their feet and they just kind of jump over him and go to the second level and go, oh, okay, why'd that big guy just fall on the ground? So this game, he stayed up, stayed engaged. He had one play double teamed, and he just took his right arm on the guy that was like, he had an arm on each guy. Mm-hmm. He just bench pressed that guy off of him and then went and made a play. I was like, man, that's what we paid for. Like, that's what he showed when he was with the 49ers, is this kind of level of just strength in the middle to make sure that this pile doesn't move. Like, you're not winning on the inside. And so for sure, need to see him continue that on, especially against the Jets. Mm-hmm. Like, I know Rodgers has been Hall of Fame, but Breece Hall might be the guy that scares me the most on that offense. With his speed, power combination, kind of reminds me of Kenneth Walker week 1, mm-hmm. where you give him a little bit of momentum to get up to top speed, he can be gone in a second. But someone who's not gone is G4 is coming back again with the 199 super saying, am I crazy or should Zack Wilson be number 2? I don't think you're crazy. I said before the season started, when they decided to keep 3 quarterbacks, I said, I really think the number 2 quarterback should be based on the opponent. If you think that this is going to be a 17-13 kind of game, Jarrett Stidham's probably your quarterback. He's not going to go make the really big mistake that's going to cost you the game. You can stay close. Maybe that one big play happens. Maybe the defense makes a play, something like that. But if you're playing a great offense and you're going to need a quarterback that can put up some big numbers, at some point go make the big play, Zack Wilson should be your number 2. So this week against the Jets, I would probably have Zack Wilson be my number 2. Mm-hmm. Just there's a chance the Jets could put up some numbers. And if Bo Nix goes down, I probably would rather put in Zack Wilson. One, a little bit of the revenge game. I mean, how great would it be if Zack Wilson goes and, I don't want Bo Nix to get hurt. But to have Zack Wilson go and get the game-winning touchdown against the Jets, that would just be sweet justice for him.
Definitely. Yeah, maybe bring him in for a play to go throw a touchdown or something. But, it's funny you mentioning him maybe being the number 2. I kind of want him to be the number 1 in Miami. But maybe we could trade him away. I know I believe it was Adam Schefter brought up some guys he thinks could fit with the Dolphins, and I could see that being a good fit for him. And, this team's hurting for draft capital, and we need everything, all the resources you can to build up this team, especially with you'll be paying less for Russ next year, but there's still going to be some damage done, and you want to have all your resources there. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think Zack Wilson is that gunslinger that you kind of like to have in certain situations, similar to what they did with wide receivers last year. Oh, depending on matchup, let's call this guy up from the practice squad or whatever. But in this case, quarterbacks. And yeah, hopefully, Nix is healthy all year, knock on wood, but he's a solid guy to have on the team. And you could tell he's got a lot of his confidence back because the Jets organization will surely take it out of you. We've seen that with Sam Darnold now in Minnesota. He's looking pretty good over there.
Geno Smith.
Exactly.
The Jets have to be the worst looking organization right now with how many of their past quarterbacks are now succeeding with other organizations. So
Exactly.
yeah, it would be nice to see Zack Wilson be that next guy. Yeah, I'm with you there. I wouldn't mind seeing Zack Wilson get traded. I'm not sure Miami is a great fit offensively, just because it's such a timing offense, and Zack Wilson is not a timing quarterback. But if they're willing to throw like a 4th round pick, I'm not saying no to that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
So anyway, well, guys, we're getting ready to be at the end of the time here. We got Phil coming back in saying, what do you think Miami would give up to get Wilson? Realistically, I think at best you could get a 5th. The only people that have seen Zack Wilson since he was traded to the Broncos are the Broncos, really. I mean, I know preseason, a couple little things here and there, but most of the hype about Zack Wilson and him being a better quarterback now is coming from the Denver Broncos organization. And I know Sam Darnold, like, he is a great story that's going on in the NFL right now. Geno Smith, you're seeing some of these reclamation quarterbacks starting to thrive in different environments. But I'm guessing a lot of teams would just be like, all right, he's only been with you for a few months. I don't think he's that much further along. Maybe you've corrected a couple things, but there's still a lot of bad. And so I'm not sure teams are going to be willing to give up a whole lot for him. You have any other thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, a 5th probably the best you're going to get, unless they're super desperate. I know Skylar Thompson is now dealing with an injury, so they're on to their 3rd string quarterback. It was a Tim Boyle, I think. So, I mean, he's been in the league forever, so he's not going to be much of a plus there. So, if you really wanted to push it, I guess I could say a 4th if they got desperate, but I think, like you mentioned, Carl, a 5th round pick's probably around what you'd get from Miami.
Yeah. But anyway, well, guys, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us this evening. It's been great to talk about a Bronco victory. Like I said, it was hard to narrow down who I wanted to be in my stock up, because the Broncos were so good on both sides of the ball. I didn't have a hard time finding someone to go, oh yeah, that was a great game for them. So again, appreciate you all for joining this evening. Really want to give a shout out to our stars and super chats. Phil McLaughlin, G4's coming in a couple times here. Phil again here at the end. Really appreciate it, guys. And looking forward to this game on Sunday. If the Broncos can get to that 2-2 mark, I kind of said at the beginning of the season, if they can be 2-2 after 4 games, I don't care which 2 they win. But especially if they can win these 2 on the road, and you got 2 home games, this really could be something that sparks the Broncos, builds that confidence for Bo Nix. And so huge game. I'm not sure which way this is going to go. I'm not quite there yet. The Jets are a good team. I don't want to take anything away from them. Broncos showed some promise, but they are a young team. They can still go out there and make a lot of mistakes. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Want to make sure you guys know to like, share, subscribe to the show. That's one of the biggest things you guys can do to help us out more than anything else. We appreciate the super chats, but if you guys can go do that, it really gets us out there. You can also go to Apple, leave us a 5-star review. You don't have to. I'm not telling you have to, but I'm just saying it's great when you do, and we do go read those. Those are huge moments. So we appreciate all the different feedback we can get. And make sure you guys are heading over to Mile High Huddle to read all the different articles that are coming out. Got a lot of big things going on this week. And appreciate everyone that came to the meet and greet as well. I wasn't able to be there, unfortunately, so I didn't get to see all of your lovely faces. But hopefully next year, get back there for another great time. And I haven't seen a Broncos loss during a meet and greet. So maybe that's the deal. Maybe it's got to be me being there. I don't know.
We were missing you, man. That's what it was.
But just wanted to say, Dylan, thanks for joining me this evening. Stepping in here last minute with Nick gone for doing a couple things. And it's been fun to talk to you. Any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, man, just hoping for another Broncos victory, continue that confidence, really build up Nix. And honestly, at this point for me, win or lose, I just want to see Bo Nix develop. I want even the team as a whole. I just want to see them play better, be competitive, whether it's a win or a loss, just be competitive. Go out there and compete and build for next season, the next game, next season, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So anyway, thank you all for joining us here for this Tuesday, Building the Broncos. As Nick always likes to close out the show, choose kindness and compassion and go Broncos.
Go Broncos.